Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just an FYI, Dr. White, I didn't get the reminder link for the meeting. It tends to come like an hour ahead of time.
Right, I will check that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Dr. White, at some point I may jump off and then come back in from my other device. So if you see me, I don't have my work phone to text you, so just letting you know ahead of time.
Okay.
If you see me leave, I'm coming back, but so you could accept me as a
I
panelist again.
I sure hope you come back.
Dr. White, it looks like Dr. Yarbrough's raised his hand and needs to be moved over.
Adam,
Thank you. All right, we'll just wait another minute, make sure we get everybody we need to connected.
Good evening. Is my audio working?
Yes.
Ah, great. Thank you.
All right. So I think we'll go ahead and get started and call this meeting to order. The first Finance and Operations Committee meeting of the new year. Happy New Year, everyone. Hope people had a chance to relax on the break, at least for a little bit. If not, I'm sorry, but we'll just jump right into this. I did have a request to move up two items in the agenda. That being the November 2025 financial report and the budget update for 25 or 26, 27. So if there's no objection, we'll go ahead and do that to accommodate people needing to be at another meeting in a little bit. So seeing no objections, we'll go ahead and move those up. And so we'll jump into the November 25 financial report and the budget update for next year. So Mr. Hernandez or Dr. Negron, floor is yours.
All right, I'll take it. Let me set this up here. Okay, you guys see the presentation on your screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Because now I cannot see it myself. So give me a second. I may have to move this around a little bit here. Do you still see it now that I moved it to a different screen?
We see it and it's in the not in the presentation mode, but I can see it.
Okay, well, you see it now.
Yes.
Perfect.
There-
Okay, my apologies. All right, so let's start with this presentation. This is the budget, the financial presentation through November. Now, normally, just for clarification, normally we do our financial monthly presentations on the second F&O meeting of the month. Because on December we only have one F&O meeting. We are now catching up, so we're doing the November financials during this F&O meeting. On the next F&O meeting in the month of January, which will be on the 20th because we have a holiday, I believe, that Tuesday, I will be presenting the December financials. And then at that point, we'll be all caught up. In addition to some other presentations that I may propose at some point during the meeting, I'll propose something else that I'd like to do. So November financials, I'm gonna go through these. Yeah, as always, we start with the strategic operating plan as our foundation, our basis for everything we do here. So what's included here, we'll have the two pieces that we always include, which is the general funds and the special funds to November 30th of 2025. Total expenditures to November 30th are $76.8 million. Again, these are expenditures that have come through. That doesn't include encumbrances, and we'll see that. And I want to be very intentional about explaining that because I want people to understand and be able to have these conversations, in the future between what is year-to-date actuals versus encumbrances, and we'll see that on the next page. And then that breaks down into $60.6 million of general funds and 16.2 in special funds. On the general fund side, which is the $60.6 million. On that side of it, here is the summary version. It seems, and I'm going to be very, very intentional about this. It seems like people are seeing this and they are not seeing the next 3 pages, right? So I want to be very clear. This is the summary version of the line item budget. But I will take it very slow on the next 3 pages because I want to make sure that people see this is what we've been presenting since the beginning, a line item budget presentation. Nothing less, nothing more. Line item budget presentation are the next 3 slides. But this one is a summary version, which is very helpful as it provides some additional information. The $60.6 million you see here at the bottom on the second column, those are year-to-date actuals. And then when you add the encumbrances that we have posted into the system right now, it's another $85 million. Now, to give you a perspective, $60.6 million is about 28.5% of our budget. When you add the encumbrances, it becomes $146 million, which equates to about 68% of our budget. Encumbrances include expenses that we know we are going to have through the end of June. And this is information that we gather through either agreements or contracts that we have already approved for the rest of the year. So we encumber the expenses. So we know that money has already been committed for the future. So that's the difference between year-to-date actuals and encumbrances. Lately, I've received some feedback from folks from other stakeholders asking me, does that 8.5 and $6.5 million deficit that are you showing in tuition and transportation, is that true? Does that mean that we're going to finish with at least $50 million in deficit? The answer is no. These numbers are true, but the answer is no. That's not an indicator that we are going to finish with $50 million in deficit. There are 2 components that are important to understand. And this is before I go to the next areas. I want to make sure that I clarify this for the public. There are 2 components that you have to understand. One, there are some revenue reimbursements that have not been accounted for. Though that's extremely important. Interdistrict magnet funding for transportation. There are some tuition funding that hasn't been accounted for. Excess cost hasn't been accounted for. There are some funding, some revenues that have not been accounted for yet that will reduce that. These deficit numbers that you see here, it will be reduced by those revenue sources. So that's point number one, and that's extremely important. Point number two, towards the end of the year, we always have opportunities to move funding around from areas that have some positive outcomes and some additional special funds that we are able to identify towards the end of the year to cover some of these expenses according to the scope of service that that grant or that special fund was created for. So long it doesn't deviate from that, we're able to use some of that special funds. So there are other opportunities towards the end of the year that we have to evaluate where we do have some positive outcomes to cover some of the negative outcomes. So there are two things that are going to happen that will reduce those deficits that you see right now. So nothing to, to be nothing, not creating urgency. There's no chaos. These are just numbers right now today, but we have some opportunities now in the future to reduce those. Now, that does not mean that I am promising now that we're not going to have a deficit or we are going to have a deficit, right? We have to wait for projections to be done. That leads me to the next point. Our director of finance here within the general funds and special funds, Juanita, she committed today to have projections done by the next FNO if this committee is interested in having those projections by the next FNO committee. We could have them by the next FNO. We could have them for the next one. I don't have any preference. I'll leave it to the chair to decide whether you want me to present some projections on the next one or leave it for the following one. I would say that projections, I will talk about projections when I get to that point in the next meeting or whenever we decide to do so. That projection will have some assumptions built into it. And it may not have all the information that we would like to have, but it will be enough to start showing a path forward. So I'll leave it to the chair to let me know whether it's now or later when you would like me to do that. But we are almost ready. I just saw it today. She sent it to me today. And it has pretty good information that that I think the public will be interested in seeing. So I'll leave it up to the chair to make that decision at a later time. So anyway, see, this is the summary version of it. We have some, there are some line items here under the salaries that are positive. Some other ones that are, you see positive number, but I believe that teacher full-time, it's running at about $8 million a month. If that were to stay true all the way through the end of June, we may finish with a $56 million expenses in addition to. So that may lead us to a deficit of $1 to $2 million on that line item. But there's another line item here that may end up with a $1 million positive, so that could offset each other. So these are projections that are very early on. We have to see how it pans out in the next quarter. But at least we now have some good data and good information to start showing a picture for the future. And then the same thing with these revenue reimbursements. I can then start talking about how these numbers will be reduced to a point that is more manageable. So that's this page. Now, the next 3 slides. This is the line item budget. So if you have never been exposed to a line item budget, this is it. You're looking at it. We've been showing this in September. Same line items, same budget. Nothing has changed except the year-to-date actuals as we accounted for more expenses. Line item budget right here. It doesn't get any more detailed than this. And this has at least 3 slides, 3 pages of line item budgets.
If I could just ask you to pause real quick.
Yeah.
Mr. Hernandez, Dr. White, Ms. Downer is in the other room, needs to be moved over, please. So,
Done.
All right, thank you very much. Please continue.
Thank you. This presentation is posted, and within a day or two. I believe. I honestly I don't know, Pat. You can confirm, but I think as soon as I send it to you by the next day, I think it gets posted fairly immediately. So this is posted for the public to look at, to evaluate. My office is always open to answer any questions. The information is here. Line item budget, expenses. We're tracking every expense. We're tracking absolutely everything that needs to be tracked. There should not be any question about the accounting of our finances. Everything is in the system. There's 23, 24 people that work on this on a day-to-day basis. This is as updated as it could be. So this is the line item budget with the expenses. These numbers match. The bottom numbers here match the summary version that I showed you 3 slides ago, and everything is here. Moving on, this presentation represents expenses through November. It does not show
Mr.
any
Hernandez,
projections.
can you walk us through what's there since this is, or at least this is my first time seeing it wasn't posted earlier. Can you walk us through those 3 pages and what's there, please?
So, okay, so let me see you see these categories: teacher, full-time, admin, and then you see instruction supplies, tuition. So these are the
Yes.
big categories, right? Every
Hmm.
single one of them now gets broken down into specific GLs, into specific general ledger line items. So let's say, for example, admin and management, support staff, part-time, overtime. You see how these are now categories here? They get now broken down into specific account descriptions. So that big line item that I showed you in the slide before now gets broken down into 5, 6, 10, 11 different line items. Each of them have a budget tied to it. So although I could say support staff full-time, for example, support staff full-time is 11.5. Now you can ask me, okay, what makes up the support staff full-time? I could go to this page and support staff full-time is made up by building repair, custodians, clerical staff, security staff, truck drivers. I could break it down by line item as such. With each of them with a specific line item and a specific budgeted amount. The same applies to every other category. So every category gets broken down into more subcategories, each of them with a budgeted item that we track individually, specifically individually, one by one. I'll give you a good example of why that's important. Let me go to transportation. Transportation has several line items that may be over budgeted right now, again, because we haven't accounted for some of these reimbursement revenues. But I can also see that some are still positive. Some are negative by not much. Maybe after we get the revenue, they may turn into positive after we apply the revenue to it. But here, I can identify exactly what within transportation may be the one that requires more attention. Or what within, where's tuition? Tuition is a line item on its own. What within utilities, what within instruction supplies may require more attention. And I can specifically go, it may be textbooks. Okay, let's look at textbooks. Let's see exactly what are we doing with textbooks. Do we need more? Do we need less? And we can then, after that, we can then track it by location. Okay, if we are on a deficit in this line item, is there a specific school that may be, spending more in textbooks than allotted? I can go now, broke it down into locations as well, and I can know exactly which location is the one that's spending more or less. So that would be another report that's about 100 and so pages. In fact, I don't know if you see it, but it's this thick. It's about 100 something pages that I can see by location how these expenses broken down. We get broken down. So we have a system that's robust enough that we can see all the expenses by location, by place, by date, by time, absolutely everything. So this is the line item budget. I can go line by line. I don't think, Dr. Yarborough, that it may be, I don't know how far you want me to go into the detail,
What you've
but
done is fine. I just wanted you to actually do what you did, which is explain the connection between the 2 pages and show what's here.
yeah, perfect.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. And then this is basically the detailed version of the summary version that I always refer to during these presentations. Again, this is the numbers through November. It does not include any projections. Transportation cost currently includes first half of the interdistrict grant, which is about $1.3 million have been applied to the totals. However, the second half will come in spring. And once we submit the new student count that is being transported, and then that will be another set of revenue that will offset some of the numbers, the amounts that you see there. Again, remember the amounts that you see on the report include encumbrances. So it includes expenses that have yet to be done yet. So we're looking at the future here. So it makes sense that we have yet applied the revenue because we haven't committed the expenses yet. However, our report showed the expenses because we're showing encumbrances included. which is good because it gives us a better picture of where we are going to be in the future. As I mentioned before, projections for the remaining of the year can be presented on our next F&O meeting. These projections will account for additional agreements contracts, as well as revenue to offset those expenses and prior expenses already reported on previous months. So that's the plan moving forward, to hopefully provide that projection and then update it as we go along in the next quarter at least. It will be a fiscally responsible task for us, function for us to do, to now start looking at how our projections look like towards the end of the year, so we can start making any adjustments if there are any that can be made. Now, special funds. This is the report for special funds. We have already spent about 60 million, just over $60 million of our special funds. There are $7 million that have been encumbered, leaving about 42 and a half to be spent. Most of the special funds get spent on the second half of the year. So I looked at the last few years because I had that question myself, if this is normal, to only spend about 25%, in the first 5 months of the year. Normally, first 5 months of the year, I'm looking at somewhere 42% of expenses. Seeing only 24, almost 25, raised a little bit of a red flag. But then I looked at other years, and it's common that special funds kind of take more of a peak on the second half of the year. So it seems to be more of a timing and than anything else. This is the breakdown of that. So Dr. Yarborough, it's the same thing. It's just a different look. Same thing. The detail, then the same numbers you see here, you can catch them here. The 60 million here, of expenses. You could kind of see those here, but broken down into the specific, special fund sources that are being used for those expenses. And then this is a little bit of a pie chart that shows where most of the expenses of special funds are going. You will always see, it seems to be a trend that full-time salaries is always the biggest chunk. Then when you include benefits to it, then it basically takes about, I want to say about 60%, 65% of the special funds. It's to cover full-time staff salaries and employee benefits. And then if you include the part-timers, then that's even more so. So staffing, has a huge dependency on special funds. So we always make sure that we track those carefully, as it is extremely important that we maintain our staff, not only this year, but also sustain them for future years as well. So that's the end of the November presentation. Mr. Chow, I'll open the floor for questions if anyone has any questions, or before I move on to the next one, it's up to you.
Yes, please. Comments or questions from the committee? Dr. Yarborough.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and the walkthrough. And I'm trying to look up this. Well, one, on this particular chart, if just in terms of visually, if you could add the numbers next to the titles. So for full-time salaries, actually put the number there for it. I think it will really increase the readability of this pie chart. But the question is capital. Um, is capital listed in this particular budget that you are showing? And the reason I'm asking is because we approve capital funds through F&O, but I don't recall if it's actually in the budget that we report on monthly.
No, capital funds does not, it's not included on special funds or general funds. That's a total separate category, and Dr. White can speak a little bit more about it. He's more in tune with that particular category and the expenses on the capital funds, but that's totally separate. It's not included here. So to answer your question, the answer is no. It's not here, and it's not in general funds.
Okay. At some point, I think we should include the capital funds budget, so that our committee and the public can see where we're spending from, and be clear that it's a different budget than special funds and the general budget. One question is, from the line item information that you have, is there anything that's standing out to you in terms of expenses to pay attention to or modify any that so outside of transportation and
Well,
outside of special funds? Is there anything that sticks out in terms of being exceptionally high or exceptionally no low, or it tends to be just as we predict?
Well, I mean, you touch on it, right? Right now, my biggest focus is transportation, and I've talked to both the director of transportation and also Tiffany, who's also here. We talked about some ideas and some things that they are looking at. They're currently, I don't know if they're done with it, but they were currently doing an audit on some of the transportation component. They have identified some opportunities that can yield some positive results. I'm not sure where they are in that process, but I know that recently they did talk to me about some of the steps that they are taking towards eliminating some of the potential buses that are uh, you know uh, transporting very few items. And I'll if you don't mind, I'll let Tiffany kind of jump in because she may have a little bit more about that. Tiffany?
So some of the things that we're working on right now as it relates to transportation, specifically our in-district special education transportation, what we're looking at is our routes and really making sure that we have two things, making sure that we're looking at the routes to see whether or not if there's an opportunity to condense the routes just based on ridership, and then also a process in place, making sure that even prior to our schools signing up for things like specialized, transportation, looking at the appropriateness of those things. So again, we do have someone in our office. We are in the midst of doing some of that work, enough so we can have an opportunity for savings, but we don't have a number yet, but certainly can get back to you as soon as we're looking at those things. But it would really look at route reduction, being responsible, looking at the ridership.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the road transportation is the biggest one. The other one that we are looking constantly is the other contractual services. I'm not overly concerned about that one just yet, but we're looking at it more in depth only because we created the contract vetting committee, which now has this task of looking at these contracts in a more detailed manner. So we're constantly on a weekly basis looking at it. In the process, I'm learning quite a bit about how some of these renewals happen, and we have already come up with some ideas that some we can implement this year, some we can implement, in the future. About evaluating, performance evaluation of these renewals, especially whether it's after school programs or any other contractor, evaluating their performance, in a way that allows for us to determine whether the effectiveness is there, and also be able to renegotiate, some of the cost for the services. So we're having these conversations at the same time that we are evaluating these agreements, and then kind of like taking notes of things that we can do now in the future, to potentially not only provide some savings, but also, more importantly, provide a more quality service, right? Because at the end of the day, if the performance evaluations, speaks to effectiveness, then that's ultimately the goal, right? But at the same time, we take the opportunity to then figure out if there are opportunities to save money by doing different kinds of structuring the contracts. So as we go through all the contracts, we can see some opportunities. So we're having those conversations within the committee.
Great, thank you very much.
Um,
All right. Thank you for the presentation. I always appreciate hearing about the refinements to your all's processes that you've been instituting. So thank you for some of those updates as well. On the question about whether or not to include income projections, I think if you're able to produce some income projections for the next meeting as part of the standard monthly presentation, that'd be great. Even if it was just like a separate slide this is just preliminary information at this time, just to kind of give people a sense of where that's going to go. I know it might be difficult to factor it into the interconnected spreadsheets and everything, but even if it was just like some bullet points of we're expecting between, I have no idea off the top of my head, $3 and $4 million in tuition coming back to the district, which will offset the tuition charges or the tuition line item. That would just be kind of useful information and helps each of these monthly presentations kind of stand on their own in terms of a monthly picture. So that's just my personal opinion. But if it's not information that could be presented, I always think it's good maximum transparency. And then it also tells the fuller picture, even if it's just the preliminary of we're expecting maybe around this range and it would be applied to this line item, would be, I think, educational and useful.
All right,
So,
sounds good.
okay.
So jumping into budget development
Yeah,
update.
just make sure if there's no other questions on this item, we'll move into the budget update for next fiscal year. Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, it'll take me only 2 minutes, right? So we are at the point where I'm already starting to put some of the uh, proposed budget items from the schools only, from the schools, not departments, from the schools. I'm already putting those numbers already into the worksheet that will be part of the budget book. So originally we started with the worksheet that was used internally to exchange information. Now I'm taking that information and I'm putting it on the actual sheet that's exactly what you will see in the budget book. So at least we're moving forward with that component. On the other side, I have yet to meet with the department heads to go over their department budget. Actually, let me take that back. I actually met with one department head about 5 or 6 budgets, which is like happens to be Tiffany. I met with her for 5 of her divisions, but I haven't yet met with any of the other departments yet to solidify and finalize those budgets. I do have them; they have been returned back to us, but I have yet to meet with them to go over them. But once I do, it will be the similar process as the schools, which will be then transferred into that budget book sheet. So this is it's going to happen quickly in the next few weeks. As we understand, we have to present a draft budget for February 2nd, I believe, which is our first F&O February. And then February 9th, I think we have to present that draft to the entire board. If my dates are correct and that's the right timeline, there's obviously some urgency on getting this draft done, before the end of January. But at the same time, I want to be very respectful of the process that the superintendent and I will go through at the last week of January, where we are getting feedback from the community, from the schools. I want to leave some room for that feedback. If there are any feedback that should be embedded or included into this draft, I want to be able to do so. So although I am moving quickly and aggressive in getting as much as possible into a draft format, I'm also leaving some room for that feedback to be taken into account, because ultimately that's an extremely valuable feedback that we are seeking from the community. So it will serve for two purposes, right? Educational, right? We're going to be able to present and talk about it, but at the same time, we're going to be able to receive some information that we may be able to embed and include into the draft budget. So I'm looking forward to that opportunity towards the end of January, before we present the draft budget at the FNO. The first draft budget is a draft, right? So I'll speak to the conditions of that when we get to that point. But there are some other areas that I'll be able to refine throughout the month of February as we get more information. But I'll get to that at that point. But where I am is that I'm already kind of start building the book on the school side of it, on the department side of it. I have the information. I just have to now meet with the department heads to go over it, make sure that we're good, gather any information that I may need from each of them, and then be able to transfer that as well. And then at the same time, some of the other folks in my department will be working on the special funds and interdistrict funds in conjunction with Michelle Bonanno and some of the other staff that have some knowledge about the special funds and the interdistrict to start building that component of it. So my focus personally will be in the general fund side of it, and then some of the other staff in the department will kind of focus on the other areas, and then we'll start putting the pieces together. And that's kind of like how I see it right now. And tomorrow it may all change, right? Because tomorrow I may say, you know what, let's just do it differently because we found another way, or we found some other areas that we could just kind of like take advantage of it and be more effective. And I'm kind of open and flexible um, uh, to do this in the most effective way. And as I see things how they play out, I'm adjusting, I'm pivoting, adjusting, and making sure that I make the right approach to the right, to the whole entire budget. So that's kind of like the update that I have right now. I'm sure the next FNO, if I give another update, will be a more substantial one because we'll be right in it, and I'll be able to provide a little bit more substantive information about the budget.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions from the committee? The only thing I would say is, and the only thing I would add is, I do appreciate how things are moving forward and things are moving quickly. Just as when the meetings towards the end of the month, I'm trying to remember if it's the last week of January or if it might move into February, the public meetings, there's going to be several different points around the city, just as that schedule comes together. As I'm sure it's going to be advertised, but if it could also just be sent to the board, I imagine some of us might want to pop into some of those. So,
Good.
all right. If there's nothing else on this item, we'll drop back to the top of the agenda and see, are there any comments or questions on the information only items? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, committee. One question for 2.3 and 2.6. For 2.3, which speaks about the McKinney-Vento funds for homeless children and youth. One question is, are the McKinney-Vento funds accepted? So one question is just asking you to educate me and update me on the parameters of the funds that we have received and how they can be used, and to help inform me on what are or should be the expectations from our New Haven stakeholders in terms of accessing the resources. So one question is whether or not the funds can be used directly towards housing costs for those experiencing housing insecurity, and then also are the funds specifically for the families of New Haven Public School students, or is it generally available once the funds are attributed to other organizations? Please.
Thank you, Dr. Yarbrough, for those questions, and you provided to them earlier to us, so we're a little prepared to speak to those. And I believe you're speaking to the Christian Community Action funds, as well as the ones that support the Pride Center. And so we want to make it clear that the McKinney-Vento funds do not go directly to help with paying for rent or for finding housing. We do have, the federal government provides a very specific program for that through the housing voucher program and other housing support programs. The McKinney-Vento funds is intended to provide some temporary supports to sort of hold up families until we can get them out of the condition of being housing insecure. And so we partner with organizations like Christian Community Action Agency, who becomes this referral service for families to say, here's where food is accessible. Here's where you can get housing support. Here may be a few dollars that could support in ways that are not intended to be long-term, but are intended to get families to a place where they may achieve some level of stability. But the idea that there are folks who, and there's been public comment about this, where what supports are available, where we are very clear. We have a complete listing of referrals and resources that we can provide. Christian Action in particular provides support such as 24-hour notice. We have had families who would call on Thanksgiving or in the middle of the night, and they need some sort of resource support. Christian Community Action can provide some temporary supports in that way, and not necessarily we are paying Community Action Agency to be helpful to our families, but we're not necessarily paying them to give someone an apartment, right? They have to. There's a process In the state of Connecticut, under state law, you must go through 211. You must go through that process of being identified through that statewide system. And some of that does require some expectations of the family who is unhoused. So, for example, they are expecting you to use the resource of housing that's available, specifically, like access a shelter. Some families might choose to stay in their cars as opposed to accessing the shelter. That would delay or sometimes remove the opportunity to receive the services. There are some complexities there, but we are very clear on what the federal government allows us to do through the federal legislation. And yes, it does allow us to pay for services that provide resources, help, and support to our families. So we have a place when we identify these students, we have a place to immediately say, contact community action services, Christian services, community Christian services, so that they can help you along the way. So I hope that provides some degree of clarification. I can prepare a more detailed presentation if you would like for us to do that to help explain some of the complexities.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that with me. It does uh, address some of the questions that I've had. And I don't know, um, I have received questions about it, not widespread. So I don't know if there's, great understanding or limited understanding. It might be one of those categories where it would be useful to have a FAQ available, so people don't have to go back to kind of the grant language and pull out information from there. Essentially saying what you just said. So maybe even take this recording and a little one pager would be useful. But you did give me the information that I'm looking for to help me understand. And I think the last question is uh, any parameters around being New Haven specific or NHPS specific? Is there a need for us to track that? Is it useful to do so? Or once we provide it once we, I don't know if we're sub-granting uh, to particular organizations, is it then in their hands to determine the use of the resources?
Yeah. So if a family, so the parameters are, if it's a New Haven Public School family who we identify, that family, whether it's a charter school family or a New Haven Public School family, we provide supports to that family. Or we may have a family who might come in another district, might be what's known as the nexus, but they land in our district. We provide supports to that family. So it is whether you land in New Haven or you are here in New Haven, as long as that that person is identified through our liaison, only our liaison who is appointed by our superintendent and serves as a district liaison, which is required by the state, can do that final identification. And we go through a very clear process of questions to ensure that that persons or persons are appropriately identified. And then all of the follow-up supports, we keep very detailed notations of where the families are in the process. And it takes years of times for families to move along from being so housing, in such an unstable situation. And we try to support them as much as we can. I think it's also important to know that we received $50,000 to stretch across serving nearly 700 students through resources. And we try to be thoughtful around how we spend those dollars. We try to work with reputable organizations that have a track record of what they do, and we keep that information. Here, we are very careful about how we share information about families who are unhoused because, I mean, they're among our most vulnerable families right now. So, but we have a very clear procedure and process of identification and tracking.
Great. Thank you very much for that.
You're
Um,
welcome.
Mr. Wilcox, I just had one more, I think. Um, and That was for agreement 2.6 with free three prime web solutions. Um, and if there was someone here to answer the question, that's fine. If not, we can move forward. And the question was just who makes up the target audience for the advertising?
We have a member from the HSC in the audience. Ms. Carter, I'm bringing you up to speak.
Hello.
Hello.
Dr. Yobo, could you ask the question again?
Yes. For the agreement with Three Prime Web Solutions, who makes up the target audience for the advertising?
It's prospective parents and students. So, because we work with this marketing agency, they can actually target all of the ads directly to our specific demographics that we are trying to pull in. So, suburban students who are meeting our racial isolation requirements.
Thank you. And is the way that it's working, so basically we're using parameters, or they're using parameters within social media to target certain demographic elements, but not necessarily specific people, like specific names. But you can say people who live in this area who may have children of this age range. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and they can go even deeper where it's like if there are particular things that they like on Facebook or Instagram, so things that align with our magnet theme also gets targeted. So racial demographics, zip codes, yeah, it's not something that I could do as a teacher at all.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. That's all, Mr. Wilcox. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Carter. So, hearing nothing else on these items, move into abstracts. There is one. Um, and Ms. Haxey.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Happy New Year. So this is the Title 4A grant. It says 2026, but this is that grant where we write it in October, and then we receive the money usually around February or so of that year. So a lot of the funds that we have in this grant, we usually tag for the next school year, because right now we're spending the one from the previous school year. They always give us 2 years to spend it, usually, up until now anyway. And this is also the grant that has those three buckets that we spend within, and we have to disperse the funds within those three buckets. So the three buckets are well-rounded education, safe and healthy schools, and effective use of technology. And so we have to spend at least 20% of the grant in well-rounded and safe and healthy schools, and then the rest of it we can play around with for effective use of technology, or go more in those other buckets. So as you can see from the abstract, we pay for everything you can imagine with this grant, a variety of things. So in well-rounded, we do a lot of the before college, early college type of things, dual enrollment. We pay for all the books for the kids who are in early college or dual enrollment classes. We pay for college and career advisors at the high schools, AP testing, PSAT testing. It's something we added this year. All of the seal of biliteracy testing and awarding. We also pay for music and art supplies and things like that. Curriculum for all of the subject area supervisor work with curriculum with teachers, world language events, anything that would enhance well-rounded education for students, but is not necessarily paid for with other grants. That was the purpose of this Title IV funding. Then in Safe and Healthy Schools, that also includes sort of a parent involvement piece. So that's where we pay for our translation, phone-in translation service, climate survey, health curriculum. Student council falls under that because it's sort of a helping students feel safe and healthy at school type of practice. We also have a middle school at-risk student program in there. And then our effective use of technology, we pay for Padlet and Kami. for the teachers, which is sort of instructional technology tools. And we also pay for our credit recovery program through that because we do it in a way that uses technology in that it's sort of hybrid. Students are working online with teachers during some of that. And then finally, for next year, we've added paying some of for an AI platform that the AI committee is currently working toward piloting this spring, so that we'll have the decision for next year, and that this grant would pay for that platform for teachers to use to assist with their instruction and planning and to use with students.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions? I had none either. Sounds like a lot of work.
Thank you so much.
All right. Moving forward, we'll jump into agreements. 4.1 is with CREC, Ms. Jackson.
Hi, how are you? Sorry about that. 4.1 for CREC, we have utilized in the past ACEs. We have gone around and making sure that we're looking at services. So what this is for is that we're looking for folks who have specialty, specifically working with our students in our specialized programs, really looking at augmentative communication devices. Again, these are assessments for children who, may have limited language and need, communication devices to be able to communicate and have access to classrooms. In addition to that, one of the things that we're asking them to do is also to help us build capacity with even some of our own staff, whether it be our teachers within our specialized programs and also our speech and language pathologists, enough to be able to provide this level of support for our students. So again, it's for both professional development and for evaluations for devices for some of our students.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Jackson. Is there a train the trainer component to this, and how does it work in this scenario?
So we do have some, I don't want to say it's a complete trainer model because there are specific credentials for those folks who have an assistive technology background, but there is some overlap with our speech and language pathologists as far as some of the communication devices and recommendations that are made. So a part of that would be, for instance, we sometimes have it where as an agency can come in and show our speech and language pathologists how to utilize certain devices with children, and that will enable them to do that. And then if we have another child coming along with a similar profile, giving them the ability to do the same thing as opposed to going back to the vendor and having to do the training on device and different apps and things of that sort. But there's specific things with the actual assessments that our speech and language pathologists can't do, but some of the instructions and moving forward with additional students with additional profiles, it gives our opportunity for some of our own staffing to be able to do those portions of training with specific devices for students.
Okay, great. That clarifies things. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Hearing none others, we'll move on to 4.2, an agreement with LEAP. Dr. Joseph Lumpkin.
Hi, hello again. And before I get started, I want to introduce Lori Beth Rodriguez, who is our new coordinator for after school and community engagement. We are very excited to introduce Lori Beth, who is not only a graduate of New Haven Public Schools, she's also come through our ranks working as a para, as a dropout prevention specialist, deeply involved with community engagement in that work, doing work with two of our schools that have made remarkable progress in dropout prevention work, FAME and Truman, and has also led the work for our community engagement through the Learn Engagement Attendance Program. And so, and she also graduated with a master's degree. She has her undergraduate degree in social justice and specifically criminal justice. And she does have a master's degree in accounting. And so she is able to be on board with us and support this work in a remarkable way. So welcome, Lori Beth, to your first Finance Committee meeting. And so we are able to support LEAP through a competitive grant that we've applied through the state after school programming, recognizing that we may be facing cuts from the feds. And this allows us to expand after-school programming in the New Hallville area, not just to students who attend that particular school, but students from all across, who attend schools all across New Haven, but maybe living in the neighborhood. And this competitive grant, we applied for 3. I think I may have mentioned this before when I submitted the abstract, and we won 2. I'll speak to the other one in another agreement, but LEAP will be serving multiple students, around 60 students who will be coming from the New Haven area. Again, as you know, we track the appropriateness and the success and the capabilities of our after-school programs through nationally recognized standardized assessments, as well as keeping our own eyes on the program and providing feedback, not just from our team, but also from families and students as well. And from the schools where it's located, in this case, King Robinson. We work very closely with the principal and the principal's team to give us feedback in ways that we could improve the supports that we've been receiving.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either. And welcome, Ms. Rodriguez, to the Finance and Operations Committee meetings. Welcome to your new role. So we'll move on to 4.3, agreement with Arte. And then 4.4, I think, is also yours.
Yes, we are so happy we won this grant because Arte will be serving the Fairhaven area. It actually is going to be sort of one of the backups that we've had when the feds pulled our community schools grant. We did not know it would have happened so quickly and so harshly, but we anticipated that we wanted to ensure we have programming that was provided not just at a school, similar to LEAP. Arte will be providing services at the Atwater Center, and that would allow more flexibility in programming, more students from the area to participate. So we thought about it in the grant application that something might happen with community, community supports that we initially won from the federal government. That again, as I said, was jolted away from us unexpectedly. But this plan would really help us to service at about between Arte and the ALK organization, about 150 students or so. And so this could not come at a better time.
Sounds like it. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward. Trying to understand a little bit of the timing of this. So in particular, in talking about the renewal in question number 12, has the cost increased, and if yes, by how much? And it talks about the annual cost. The previous year was 47,000, and now there's a 6-month investment of 70,000. And part of what I'm trying to understand is uh, was some of the work done in the fall semester, and we're kind of catching up now to be able to capture that and compensate for that, uh, or is
Yeah.
it like a dramatic increase in work that's happening now, concentrated in this spring semester coming up, or
Well, look, we would really like to start this work in September, right after school starts. Unfortunately, our notification from the state comes very late, and with those late notifications, I want to say maybe November or so. It takes time for us to work through a process before we even get to presenting to you. So this was just a matter of the time that it takes to go through the processes and the procedures once we get notification. There's about a 4 to 6 week process that we have to ensure that we are complying with all of the Board of Education's policies, so that we are set. Arte is an organization that provides supports to our schools without these funds. I mean, they sort of scramble and make things happen. It's not ideal. It's not adequate. We ask a lot of our nonprofit organizations, and then we ask them to step up sometimes at last minute, based on when these funding, becomes available to us. And Arte is one of those organizations that has the ability to respond and respond in a very high quality way. They have a very strong track record. We would have wished we had gotten earlier notification, and our policies, we have very strong policies before we get to bring this forward to you all, and we have to follow those procedures and policies, and that is about a 4 to 6 week process.
Okay, thank you. And so they, so all of the work, some of the work has already begun, or the work will is only being done in this like last part of the year. You're muted, Dr.
Sorry, yep,
Joseph.
you were hearing my alarm going off there. The work that we are paying for them, that we are paying for, is being done this part of the year. That is not to say that they haven't scrambled and do what Arte often does to provide some services in between, but we, as you know, we do not pay for services, or we do not, our department, we do not enter contracts until we are able to start the programs. So yes, they were able to provide some supports prior to that, but not under this grant,
Okay,
and not through this funding ability. So we, as I said, it would have been nice if we had gotten earlier notification, and just didn't work out that way. But we will be able to support families starting, upon approval from the board.
thank you. And you may have mentioned this part, but is enrollment by school here,
No,
or by students?
what we love about Arte and the LEAP program, and the ALK programs, we were intentional that we are serving the community. So it is, wherever the student, whatever school the student attends, they will be eligible for this program. And oftentimes, they are families who are in the neighborhood. And so because these programs have, state approvals and certainly approvals from us to operate, the students arrive at these programs through our transportation services. So students are picked up from their school. So whether they attend, for example, Benjamin Jepson, they will be picked up from Benjamin Jepson and be brought to Arte, and the families then are able to pick up their students, whether they can walk or find a way to transport them in an easier way, rather than, if the school was not available in their neighborhood. The
Right.
services would.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right, thank you very much. Hearing nothing else on this, 4.4 is with ALK Mindfulness Initiative.
Yes. And ALK will be supplementing supports at both of those sites as well, at the King Robinson site as well as the Atwater Center site. And they bring in, as you know, strong social emotional supports that is linked to the after school hands-on arts and recreation supports that Lee provides, as well as what Arte provides. Again, we have a very good track record with them, based on our own assessments, based on feedback from the parents, from the students, as well as from the schools where the students attend.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? None on this one either. So thank you very much. We'll move into amendments. There is one, a large one with Bertram Moses. Ms. Jackson?
Yep, so this is an amendment with Bertram Moses. I just want to make it clear that we're putting this amendment in now, just anticipating what costs may be in the future. It doesn't mean that we're going to utilize this whole amount. The reason why we want to do that is we want to get ahead of any charges that we may have in the future. So I just want to make sure it's clear that, anything that we've had Bertram Moses do at this point in time, we certainly have our current contracts to cover that amount. But we have asked Bertram to take on some additional work for us this year. And again, looking at our transition, even with some of our Title IX cases, some transitions with our new legislation around school culture and climate. We've asked them to be involved in those cases. And then right at the start of the year, we did have a case that we did litigate. And some of the cases that we do have, we can't anticipate whether or not we would have them, but we did already have one at the start of the year. And those kinds of cases can cost you anywhere between $70,000 to $100,000. In this particular case of what we had for this particular year was really defending some of our own evaluations that we have. We were able to prevail in that case. But those kinds of cases, again, that was just a one-day hearing. You can pay anywhere, like I said, again, for a full day hearing, anywhere between $70,000 to $100,000. So what we're trying to do at this point in time is to get ahead of what we're anticipating may be cost in the future. We can't anticipate whether or not we'll be involved in litigation, but we certainly know that we've asked them to take on some additional work at the start of the school year.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Jackson, you answered some of my questions. I think a general question I have is whether or not for this particular agreement, the services they're providing are specifically like legal services, or if there's training or other things that should be categorized in a different way.
Some of both. So we do have, just as a reminder, we do have two contracts with Bircham. I know it's a little misleading when it talks just in the, here about special education costs, but it's actually special education costs and other student matters. So they are doing a training component. This is not a typical situation where we have them doing this amount of professional development. This has been more around some of the changes in legislation. But to your point, we certainly can categorize some of those things. That's just not been the typical practice that we've had them that much so involved. But certainly with some of the changes in legislation, we wanted to make sure that our folks were, fully updated on some of those changes. But a lot of the costs really have to do with some more of the Title IX cases that we have them now involved with.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. And then just in terms of the school climate implementation of the new Connecticut school climate regulations, you could just give us a brief overview of what some of those changes are or what the effects of that legislation has been.
So the effects of the legislation right now, as you know, there's been some changes in the actual definition of bullying. And a lot of what we've been working with our administrators is a change in how we're reporting some of the school climate and culture information. Really, what's the definition? How are you doing the reporting? Which some of it has been confusing of what we call a challenging behavior form. I know we did some of this in a Board of Ed presentation, probably not going into too much details, but certainly a lot of the changes, the spirit of the legislative changes, really so that people really understand, how we're wrapping our heads around really providing social, emotional, behavioral support for students. There is a call in the legislative update also too that we do a lot of training on social emotional learning and restorative practices. So what you see in the changes really is a lot, the spirit of it is a really wrapped around doing a lot more preventative work. However, there is this reporting component that we have had to spend some time really working through and still working through with administrators and our culture and climate teams.
All
If
right,
that
thank you
answers
very
the
much.
question. Yep. But like I said, again, ultimately, we're not anticipating that we're going to be spending this additional money. We just want to make sure that we're getting ahead of it so that we're not coming back to you in April asking for an increase.
All right, thank you. Hearing nothing else on that, we'll move into purchase orders. The first one is for convection ovens. And before you start, Mr. Young, I'll just say I was at the inauguration and there seemed to be a large number of people happily chowing food in the Fairhaven cafeteria that I believe your staff was responsible for. And so there was some smiling faces there. So just kudos to you. And there was a ton of people, so I imagine that was a lot. But you all are used to a lot of meals for a lot of people. So, but
Yes, sir. And yes, the The purchase is for some convections ovens for about 7 of our schools here within the district. Just doing some minor upgrades to our schools. Some of the ovens that we currently have, when there needs to be maintenance that's done on them, those are kind of old, so they don't have the parts available. So we're just upgrading overall throughout the district.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? All right, I had none either. So thank you for that. 6.2 is purchase order with Rutolo Mechanical. Dr. White?
Yes, there was a increase in the cost as well, working on boilers. And this is, I'm sorry, this one is the cost for the installation of the boiler at Conti School.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? No, it's pretty straightforward. Number 7.1 change order is with Cone Incorporated. Dr. White?
Yes, this is to cover costs for repairs. We did have to do repairs on Fairhaven's lift for the stage so that persons needing assistance are able to go from the audience level to the stage as necessary. ADA compliance work that needed, as well as additional work in that building.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? And then either 7.2 change order with Tucker Mechanical.
We have been battling heat problems and just trying to work to keep heat in our buildings. We did have issues in one of our buildings today. And again, Tucker is working very closely with us to keep up, especially when we're in these particularly cold times. I appreciate the thaw that's coming and just anticipation of what we need to do to keep up with the repairs.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, thank you for presenting this, Dr. White. Have we encumbered or spent the amount that we've currently budgeted, or is this in anticipation of what costs may be to get us through the season?
I would have to check exactly where we are with our encumbrances, but yeah, this is just related to anticipated costs because it's been, as anything happens, we've been deploying to make sure we come up to speed as quickly as possible. And this should take us through the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Downer?
Dr. White, is there another vendor that's actually doing these type of services besides Tucker?
There are other vendors that are available, but this is who we've been working on with state contract and have come to know many of our systems. We've done work with AirTemp as well. And again, we go between some things we bid out and some things we go under state contract in accordance with our procurement procedures.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Hearing nothing else. That's all the action items. I'll go ahead and make the main motion. I move we send to the full board this one abstract, 4 agreements, 1 amendment, 2 purchase orders, and 2 change orders as outlined on our agenda.
Second.
Been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes.
Ms. Downer?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So thank you for that. We've now into our reports and discussion area. We've already covered 9.1 and 9.2 at the top of the meeting. So we'll move into 9.3 with the snow removal updates. Dr. White.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen? I went into slideshow mode. I'm hoping it is showing as such.
It is not showing slideshow mode on my screen.
Okay.
But I am able to see it. but it was
Okay,
showing
let me
the,
just give it one more try. Yeah. Okay.
there you go.
Okay. Great. So as we've started the season, we've had events already. Obviously, as of yesterday, I actually believe we are up to event number 6 because there are some opportunities that involve snow and de-icing. But of course, with our path to excellence, this is operational efficiencies and systematic accountabilities of being one of our core values. This is a work towards how we evaluate and what we've been doing with snow removal. So first, the process. Uh, there's the snowfall indicated in forecasts. I consult with emergency management or emergency operations center as well as public works to discuss what they're seeing, look over their forecast information, timing, and discuss best times for deployment. Uh, I meet with our ABM ground supervisor and it's supposed to be a B, the ABM account manager to discuss time, expectations. Then there's contact with the contractors to authorize deployment as to time and when. The contractors muster their team and deploy in accordance with our direction. And they take before and after pictures of their zones. And the building managers, ground supervisors, the account manager, and myself will check the work. Any deficiencies are reported to contractors in real time and with expectations that the contractors address those deficiencies. Building managers complete evaluation sheets and summary sheets are produced, and the ground supervisors have conversations with the contractors regarding their performance. This is a sample of the inspection sheet that the building managers use to describe, and they can take some pictures as well if they want to of the condition and describe what the conditions have been. All of that gets compiled into summary sheets where we see what was done, what area was not satisfied, or what was satisfied, or if it didn't apply for a particular area of the school. And again, this information is being shared immediately back to the contract. So if there's something that was not satisfied, the contract is called to come back to address it at that time. So we're trying to do this in real time, be as robust about this as possible. And in terms of accountability, so contracts have been communicated the expectations, they're notified of this forms as the event is ongoing. Based on that evidence from building managers, supervisors, anyone seen. If a not satisfied is recorded, contractors are called back to repair deficiencies immediately. The ground manager has discussions with contractors regarding what is specifically wrong and how we expect it to be in the future. And just continue communication and sharing reviews with the contractors. And at the time of preparing this prior to the last 2 events, we haven't had to move to further corrective action. The contractors have been very responsive about, as things happen, addressing them and having real conversations to make sure that we address yours. Because from time to time, some areas get missed. Sometimes it's a walkway that didn't get taken care of, or the plows plow back in one area when after the shovelers finished it. So then we need people to come back out and address those. So again, it's been constant communication back and forth, looking at the levels of salt and make sure things are applied, that we're not over salting, under salting, so that students and staff can get into their buildings safely. And that is what we've been working towards and building this towards an overall summary for the season.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. White, for walking us through the communication flow and then also the various steps for how things are executed. Um, I think this is maybe like an um, updated system for quality control. And my question is, how is the system going? Are the ground managers and building managers, are they participating in the evaluation? Are people actually giving feedback on how things are going and then reporting
Yes.
back when things are corrected? Are people, is uptake and participation high for this?
Yes, the expectation is for participation from our building managers. The last storm, it took more on the ground supervisor because we were out of session in some places. But the expectation is that when our building managers are on the ground, they're letting us know what's happened based on what they've seen. And so that, again, we can get things corrected right as they're happening, or if somewhere wasn't done. Had a situation where one walkway wasn't done, and so we had to get someone back out there to get it cleaned up, get the ice down. And there are some areas where our custodians, building managers will do things themselves closer to the building. But again, anything that's expectation of the contractors, we've been holding them to do that. And they come back out and do that quickly. And again, if there was an area, if we see repeated problems, again, it's a conversation about this is the expectation, this is what should be done, this is the area, and sometimes maybe going back out and walking a particular property with the contractor to make sure they're not missing, because some of our buildings have walkways in the back or a ramp that no one noticed unless you're on the property regularly would notice. So making sure we cover all of those. And also, one of the things for the future will be making sure we include in the next bid out and for each zone is the dismissal and arrival areas, so that all of our buildings have identified their doors. So one of the things that we'll be doing as we go, so that if you are going to Benjamin Jepson, make sure door 3 is clear, because that's where the students come in, or door 4 is where pre-K comes in. Make sure, bring further clarity to this so that, again, we can do even better. This is our initial work at using this system and engaging the building managers in it. And we want to build upon this so that, again, we are getting the service we're paying for.
Great, thank you. And do you have an estimate at this time in terms of where we are on cost, whether we're on budget, at budget?
We will be coming in with with change orders, just because, again, the issue becomes not just the storms. Like when we have a clear storm like the one on the 27th or so, obviously there's a lot of work that goes into it. But earlier in the year, we had a storm where New Haven got rain, rest of the state got snow, but temperatures were dropping afterwards. So we had to deploy to ice all of our properties so that no one would fall. So that's where the cost creep is, that while there may not be a huge snowstorm, even deploying yesterday, it's a matter of we have to have a low risk tolerance on this. So while there's a good chance that it was going to warm up yesterday and melt all the snow around the buildings, and a lot of places we saw that, but we still had to deploy to make sure that there were plows and salting in the area, de-icing, so that it was safe for this morning. And
Understood.
that's good, and that's where the cost creep is right now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the overview of how things are going. I think that the new procedures you set up, I think, are going well. I want to thank you for that. I think as we've said earlier in the fiscal year when we were approving contracts, that we were going to have these snow removal updates just to kind of get a sense, to keep attention on this, and it's also to help you all, the vendors, know this is going to get talked about. They'll they're going to want to make sure they're doing what they're paid to do. I also want to thank Ms. Downer, who's been a major advocate on this process has to be better. And so I'm glad that people are listening and making it better. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's nothing else on this. The 9.4, the quarterly part-time custodial update. This is was primarily instituted just as an update as to if things are on track as far as the costs related to part-time custodial. So, Dr. White.
At this time, we have the first billing, have to review further billing. We are on track. We've been trying to hold down costs as best we can. But again, we've had a lot of events. The real cost areas are events we don't charge for, but we do need custodial service. So that will remain a challenge for us. But we've been working with our contractors. They're showing up. Any deficiencies that we're getting from building managers, we are having conversations with the company immediately. They are addressing and when necessary disciplining. So I feel that there's an open conversation, and anytime we get any information, any feedback, we're sharing it right away.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, in terms of the events that maybe we don't charge for in terms of building use, I think that's the topic. Just encourage us to review kind of the policy and procedure around that. Certainly, I think for uh, uh, building use for residents and taxpayers is important, and maybe we can have, if we don't already have, I know we have policies in place for how this should go, and we need to make sure we can afford it and consistently provide quality space and the services. Yeah.
That is currently under review because, again, it's our in-kind efforts are outpacing the cost, just cost realities. So there are things that we've done by trying to combine programs into the same building to reduce costs. So those efforts have been taken, but at some point we do have to revisit ways that some of these costs can be rolled into grants being applied for in programs, or some of our community partners, we're going to need to ask them to help a little in these areas.
Right.
Free is not fully free.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing nothing, next item is the YFCE RFQ process overview. Dr. Joseph Lumpkin. You're muted.
Okay, so Lori Beth, are you able to share? Thank you. You good? Just give us a few moments to just adjust. We'll be right there.
All right. In the meantime, we'll address 9.6, the draft discussion calendar, which is posted. If anybody has any comments or questions related to that, I know Dr. Yarborough had a few items that he had suggestions, and so he has sent that to the superintendent and to the committee and to Ms. DeMayo, and just would be great if we could have the district take a look at those and see if where those would be best slotted in over the next couple months, and then B, if the timeline on the things on the current draft are reasonable. I fully agree with the suggestions from Dr. Yarborough that those would be worthwhile for us to have sometime in the next couple months, understanding that this is budget season, so some of those might be challenging. One was already talked about today in terms of transportation related items, update on electric bus projects and so on. So if we could maybe at our next meeting kind of have a new version of this with those items slotted in at the different times. And so if anybody has anything that they'd like added, please send it to the committee, the superintendent, and Ms. DeMayo. So if there are any comments or questions on that, happy to talk about them now, but just wanted to have staff coming off of breaks and so on to be able to take a look at this and then see that we might be asking them for some reports over the next couple of months, and also to look at the email from Dr. Yarborough and if anything else comes in the next couple of days. Any comments or questions or? Okay. So now we'll drop back to YFCE.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see the slides.
So you can see the slides too?
Yes.
Oh, good. All right, so we'll move on to slide 2. Lori Beth is co-piloting with me, which is the vision and mission slide. And I'm just going to raise the core values of equitable opportunities, high expectations, collaboration and partnerships, and continuous improvement with systemic accountability. Next, please. We like to start this conversation just reminding folks of the context in which we work every day compared to the state. You can see there that 75% of our students receive free or reduced lunch, which, as you know, is an indicator of poverty in the district. We have about 16% of our students with disabilities. Our multilingual learners are about 24%. Our high needs students, about 83%. And our students experiencing homelessness, almost 700 students. Next, please. So our process for the way we function around our contracts is foundationally set in the City of New Haven's OpenGov process. And that is part of the RFQ, which means request for qualifications, which is a little different from the RFP, request for proposals. What we look to see is how qualified are these contractors to do our work. And so this opportunity gives us the ability to have strategic alignment with our needs. It gives us an opportunity to vet the needs of both our students and schools. It certainly aligns with compliance and reduces risk management because we have a transparent procurement process, and it helps us in informed decisions. So OpenGov is foundational to what we do. And you can see over there to the right side of the screen, some of the sample questions. It goes even more in depth than that, but all of our community contractors who are interested in working with us are required to respond to a series of questions. Next. So in terms of our applications, we want to give you an idea. We had about submissions. We had about 54 submissions in the 24-25 school year. And going into this year, 25-26, we only had about 37 submissions. And currently we are able to have about 11 partners. So we expect to add a couple more of these partners, but not much more than that. And this is primarily based on availability of funding. The current partners, you can see a list of those here. who are serving in an after-school capacity and providing high-quality engagement in after-school, as well as you see Christian community action, providing resource supports, and the Pride Center and activity, providing again supports to students who are at risk or are unhoused. Next, please. And we wanted to share with you our sites that we're being served. We certainly prioritize our Title I schools. You can see the listing of sites there on the right-hand side. We're currently serving 16 of about 23. Some of our other Title I sites are high schools, and others, they are using other funding sources that does not require community partnerships. They're working primarily with staff in order to provide those supports. On the K-8 level, you can see we're providing we are supporting 18 of a total of 31 schools. Next, please. And just giving you an idea of the funding sources. So we are able to provide supports from our Title I after school. You can see the amount of students who are served through our total after school allocation. Our extended school hours, which is a state grant, makes up for about $300,000. That covers staff, contracts, some summer programming, and you can see the remaining funds there, about $14,000, which we then work as we get to the end of the year and we notice needs that schools might have, whether it might mean picking up a staff member or dealing with supplies. Those funds are there just to make sure we can help schools get through the year. We also have 21st Century competitive grants. We have 3 sites at about $100,000. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the state after school grant of about $307,000 that are supporting 2 strategic locations in Fairhaven as well as in Dixwell, New Hallville. Next, please. And our assessments, I mentioned assessments briefly in some of our earlier discussions. We walk our partners through extensive assessment programs that are nationally recognized, adapted by the state. We describe some of those programs there. The APAS programs, which includes the APTO, which is the Assessment of Program Practice tool. We also do a survey of the academic and youth outcomes, where we go back to the teachers and the staff and ask how well are students doing. We also do a reflection and discussion process based on our data. We look at the strengths and difficulties questionnaire survey to our students who are enrolled in our programs. And all of these together are designed to give us a comprehensive look and review of the quality of the programs that we are implementing. And you see on the right-hand side some samples of the assessments that we utilize. And just more information on a little bit more detail, maybe a little bit of repetition of the work that we have done. We've noted that some of this work have been done through Saturday Academies, which we no longer have funding to do. But these programs were also, these assessments were also used in our Saturday Academy programs as well. Next, please. So our ongoing steps is continuing to emphasize assessing student outcomes through our regular evaluations, coordinating activities to enhance student growth. We're continuously looking for grants, not just the state and federal ones. We're beginning to be aggressive and looking to see if there's availability on private funding as well. It's important for us to deepen engagement with our families in after school, not just during the school day, to continue to support approaches that are evidence-based and not just solutionitis. Where people say, what about this? What about that? We want to make sure that we are thoughtful in our implementation. and then to continue to include in these discussions our community partners, our parents, our school leaders, our school leaders as we go through the RFQ and the selection process. And finally, we wanted to just remind the board that we are cognizant of addressing conflict of interest, and I've outlined here the policy that specifically guides us on conflict of interest, and that specifically the policy dictates that employees or officials should not be engaged in activities that result in a conflict of interest between their public duties and private affairs. And that is the summary of our presentation, and we will take down the slides and entertain your questions.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Are there comments or questions? Dr. Yarborough.
Yes, thank you for the presentations. Very clear and insightful just in terms of the process. There's one slide where you showed who applied, like the number of people, number of organizations that responded uh, uh, in order to offer services. And I think most recently there might have been 37, and we were able to partner with 11. And I'm wondering, how regularly do new organizations request to partner in a particular manner? And do we see them come on board, or do we usually stick with the 11? Because we have um, many more organizations that apply to participate than maybe programs that we offer or funding that we can allocate.
Yeah, we are seeing some new organizations outside those that are like some of our legacy programs, for lack of a better description right now. But frankly, with the limitations of funding right now, our schools, and we tend to look at organizations that we have a lot of experience with, but we are talking to, in fact, just today, Lori Beth and I talked about engaging with Workforce Alliance, for example, to see what types of what types of services that we may be able to do a small contract with to get to know them and to bring them on board, or ALM, which is an after-school program that is a startup. So just to name a couple, our conversation just today is to say, okay, we have been continuing our work for the most part. We've brought on new contractors over the last 2 or 3 years. I think this year we've continued with some of those new ones. You see Kids Craze, those, that was a new organization for us. ALK, that was a new organization for us over the years, over the last, I would say 2 years, 2 to 3 years or so. What our focus is over the next few weeks, Dr. Yarborough, is for Lori Beth and I to, and we again started a conversation today, to begin to reach out to those newer organizations, get to know them, to see if we could put them in situations where we can test them, experience them, and put them in a position where they become part of the experienced organizations that we have to work with. So the strategy is, yes, to acknowledge we want to grow through newer organizations, through different types of innovation. And so let's take a look, let's have conversations with them, build our relationships with them, and give them opportunities to present.
Great. That sounds very promising. For summer programming, is that a different category of funding? And does it follow the same or a similar process in terms of uh, putting out a request for organizations to participate and something is granted, or is it like a continuation of what happens during the school year?
So primarily, and first, let me say, I think that I'm sorry, Ms. Red Hannons might still be on. I haven't seen her on, but our summer programs are led through the Office of Teaching and Learning, and we bring proposals forward through the office and work collaboratively on identification of community partners, et cetera. So a larger engagement. Or I see Miss Red Hannah's just came back on camera. The summer programs that we identified was funded specifically for a narrow group of students at the middle school level who were struggling with a set of issues that we felt it would be important for us to work with in a unique way. And we are continuing that program now as mentors. Our dropout prevention specialists are serving as mentors to these 90 students or so. And we are studying the progress, not just through the summer, but through the school year. The information from that summer program is promising that we might want to continue to fund that through the city or other sources that might be available. But I've let Ms. Red Hannons provide any additional information beyond the program that we supported.
Thank you.
So, good. Happy New Year, everyone.
New Year.
So there's very limited funding for summer school. There's a small grant that we receive, approximately $300,000 for summer school, and that's really primarily for our K-3 mandatory summer school programming. Any additional funding for summer programs, we're looking at other grants to help support, such as our Title I grant. And even as you heard me say, right, the summer school funds are for K-3. You know, we run a high school credit recovery program. That's something where we're trying to identify funds for that type of program. Dr. Joseph Lumpkin mentioned the middle school program that was ran last year. The city helped in paying for that because we don't have the funds identified for it. So it prevents a very unique challenge for us. In reference to community partnerships, we have actually slimmed them down tremendously for summer school and used our own internal staff. So where we were having someone come in to do, let's say, some sports activities or some arts activities, we hired our own teachers to cut down, quite honestly, on the cost. And so that's where there's one thing where community partnerships are a true benefit to the district. But, you know, when we look at the amount of funds we have fiscally, it became a challenge. And that was a hard conversation. But that's what we've done definitely since our ESSER funds expired.
Great, thank you. And I think I remember from that presentation that the district staff that were re-engaged over the summer were particularly innovative and effective.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, thank you for thinking about that. That's all, Mr. Wilcox. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'll just say thank you for the overview. This is presentation I think you all have given for the last 2 or 3 years at this first January meeting with an overview of the process. And it's been good to see how the process has been refined over time. And it's also discouraging to hear how the process is impacted by budget cuts and lack of funds and things getting scaled back just based on the funding realities. But we'll have to continue to advocate for funding for enriching activities and educational activities for our students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Looking at the agenda, unless there are any upcoming financial issues that the district folks would like to inform us about that we haven't already heard about, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We shall vote. President Yarborough,
Yes.
Ms. Downer,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
Everyone.
Thank you.